Bengals drop to the Browns 35-30. Another tough one here for Bengal Nation. But I tell you what, Joe Burrow he's given us faith, I think. You got to keep on believing in this team. Maybe it ain't this year. They pick some pieces up and it's next year. But just looking at this Browns-Bengals game, I don't think it's the end of the world. First of all, before we go over a couple of things, I mean, you got to remember, this is a Browns team that, albeit, you know, that we laugh about them across the league a lot, is one of the most talented teams in the NFL. The problem is the quarterbacking and the coaching staff. Two things that were clearly on display here. I tell you right now, the Bengals won that game. You know what I'm going back on? I'm going back on the Browns going for it on fourth down in, what was it, 4th and 3? Dumb play. Why is that a dumb play? Would have been a 2-possession game. They kicked the field goal. They didn't. They got lucky. The Burrow came back, fumbled it, and they got the ball back and scored anyway. Because he goes down the field, scores there. You just done messed up. And the other one was, hey, let's go play action. Baker Mayfield. They're cruising down the field. It took 2 minutes. 2 minutes for the Browns to go down the field on the Bengals and score that touchdown there in the fourth. All run plays. That was ridiculous. But they gave Mayfield that play action. Was it earlier in the quarter, I think? Threw the ball deep, threw a pick. That was, you know, in scoring range again. Again, the quarterback making some ill-advised passes, the coaching staff making some questionable calls. Would have been the 2 reasons you look back and say, hey, the Browns lost this game. But they didn't. They didn't lose this game because the Bengals defense, note number 1 here. Did they tackle? Did they tackle anybody this game? Did I miss the memo that said tackles were optional? We might have. I'm getting the feeling it could have happened because that was tough to watch. In all fairness, though, I'll say this. I'll say it one time. It's going to be hard for, you know, especially coming out this loss. It's going to be harder to hear through. Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt are some of the best in the game in what they do. No questions about it. Nick Chubb was one of the best running backs in the league last year when it came to after contact. He might have been the best. It was right. It was top 5, top 3, somewhere in there. Kareem Hunt, same story. These guys, their ability to break tackles and get extra yardage is through the roof. There's a reason he was averaging 6 yards per carry against a very good Baltimore Ravens defense last week. And they would have, you know, they would have gashed Baltimore for 200 yards last week had they been able to. But they got blown out, right? That was the difficulty there. So as tough as it is to swallow, the one thing I don't want to worry too much about, because, you know, they tackled the rest of the team. The rest of the team went down just fine. It was the running game. It was the open lanes. You gotta fix the gaps. Coach brought that up too. There's just too many gaps in there for this Cleveland Browns run game in the first place. But the tackling game, even when they had to stop them 2 yards, 3 yards back, loss of 2 or 3, they never went down. Those Chubb touchdowns, the one he fell short, I swear he broke 7 tackles. At that point, somebody's got to bring this man down. Got to work on the tackling. But you got to give credit to how those guys played. And you have to wonder how poorly this team did at stopping the run game. How much, you know, Geno Atkins, the defensive tackle position, it is depleted. We have to keep that in mind, how many injuries they went through. And they are missing Geno right now. If he comes back, how much he's going to help. And I tell you what, he better help, because that offense or defensive line could not get to the quarterback at all. Period. No questions about it. I felt like he's back there forever. Mayfield was, what, 8 for 9? He had 1 incompletion even after 8 for 9. 1 incompletion the entire first half. 1. And okay, those 2. The other one, no, was an incompletion where was it William Jackson? Jackson grabbed Beckham by the jersey and pulled him back. Ref didn't catch it. It was probably a touchdown pass there, though. So we're not going to count that one. We just had the 1 incompletion. He was picking his Bengals team apart, and it was in large part because of how much time he had to throw the ball. He just stood there forever. And you got so much time just to dump the football off. I don't know what's going on with this Bengals defensive line. That is my number 1 concern with the defense. It runs through the trenches in the league. It hasn't changed. When was the Bengals defense the best? When Geno Atkins, when Carlos Dunlap were getting 10 sacks a season. Yeah, I mean, it was running Terrence Newman at 30. It was running Pac-Man Jones at 30, having their best seasons of their career at CB. Was it their best seasons, or was their life that much easier because of how good the pressure was on the quarterback? They got to get back to that. It didn't feel like Mayfield got hit at all. He didn't get hit at all, except for, was it Kareem? Who in the heck's this guy? Bengals getting an interception. He's lucky they didn't call that one back. Bengals getting an interception. 30 seconds after the play, pushes Baker Mayfield. That was a bonehead play. I hope he didn't play the rest of the game. I can't believe he did that. I couldn't believe it. Bengals had a chance to go back down the field. They was lucky. They could have very, you know, been hairy there where they said, oh, roughing the passer, giving the ball back, whatever. Glad that wasn't the case. And that's kind of the difficulty when it comes to judging a secondary, right? When they have all day to throw the football, of course it didn't matter. You could have put Stephon Gilmore and Sherman out there on CB on both sides. He's got 6 seconds to throw the football. Somebody's going to get open eventually. And that was the big difficulty there. It gets some pressure on the quarterback eventually. I'd like to see how this, the rest of this secondary plays. It needs change, it feels like, right? I don't know if you play the defensive coordinator game and say, hey, we can't tackle, and we're just the holes in the run game just far and away too bad. You're not getting any pressure on the quarterback. You go that direction. I mean, it was a defensive coordinator who, after all, I mean, he had a good resume. You got to remember, this was a guy that was a defensive backs coach for an elite Dolphins and an elite Giants defensive secondary and defensive teams. That's a joke, by the way. Two teams that haven't been the greatest lately. I've always found that interesting about the coaching. You seen, was that Adam Gase? Was that the Jets? Like, what in the heck? What was you thinking with Adam Gase? Adam Gase of coaches. You think you want to bring in the coaches with some experience? That might be the difficulty, though, Taylor. Right? He was an inexperienced coach. He didn't have the same pool as far as offensive, defensive coordinators are concerned as somebody that's been a seasoned veteran, that's been around the league a little bit. So I understand it. It is what it is there. I don't want to look too much into it again. I think Chubb and Kareem Hunt just made this defense look a lot worse than it really is. And I really think the Browns and the Ravens probably give the Bengals the biggest troubles this season because of their run games and Bengals run defense. But I think they can, they prove they can hang with anybody in this game right here. And that's a lot attributed to the one we call Joe Burrow. Maybe it's not the coaching staff, though. Maybe it's just, these older elite players are just, again, they're getting older and they're just not as effective as they once was. Father time, it catches up to you eventually. It is what it is. I don't know. What's you guys' thoughts now? And I'll tell you what I do know. This almost feels like a replay, and I hope it doesn't go down this route now that I think about it, but it almost feels like an Andrew Luck entering the league again for the Bengals here. Maybe not the same player, but as far as coming in, being great quarterbacks, but just having absolutely nothing around him. No offensive line, no defense. And what was scary about Andrew Luck is we don't want to see the replays because Andrew Luck got hit so often, ended up, ended his career shorter, or he shortened his career, right? Because of how often he got hurt and he got injured due to all those hits he was taking. So that's a concern. But you can look, he did retire, and eventually it was 4, 5, 6 years down the road. The Colts started to piece this team together. And they put together, if Luck didn't retire, what many believed would have been a legitimate Super Bowl contender, built up that offensive line, the defense improved. And I feel like you could almost say we're kind of seeing that again here with Joe Burrow, because this man has proven something, much like Luck did, is even with nothing around him, and even with the pieces missing, he's going to keep the team in games. He's going to keep the team in games. He's a winner. That's what he does. And again, a 5-point loss to the Browns, a possession loss to the Chargers. It could easily be 1-1. Could easily be 2-0. And that is a big thanks to the one they call Joe Burrow over there. I mean, is he still making mistakes? Absolutely. I think we all expect that. You got to temper your expectations. I didn't throw any interceptions that game. That was nice. But I was, I'm thinking of mistakes in this game on offense. You're thinking offensive line. And I'm not looking at Joe Burrow mistakes. I'm thinking about what was it? AJ Green dropped a pass. Tyler Boyd dropped a touchdown. Again, the drops by these receivers, they're not helping sometimes. And that was... I guess it's a good sign, though, at the end of the day. We always try to bring it up. Even if he's missing a wide open guy or if their players are dropping passes, at the end of the day, he's finding these guys. He's finding these guys in a Bengals offense that just felt so stagnant last season where they couldn't find anybody ever. So you got to be, you got to look at that as a positive there for Joe Burrow. That was the nitpick something with Joe Burrow. And again, he's a guy, man of his craft here. He's going to look at the tape. He's going to improve this throughout his career. No questions about it the rest of the season. He kept targeting Denzel Ward. Best cornerback on his team, and he's elite. This guy is a stud, and it wasn't going well when Joe Burrow was targeted, but he kept going after him. It felt like seemingly every play, Denzel Ward. I think that's the thing where Joe's got to identify those matchups, and he's done a very good job of that in college. Identify those matchups and get that first look going in, the right direction. Because you see them Denzel Ward, quick passes. That's the last guy you want to target. You're going to go over in a quick slant off the pass. Try to look at the other side of the field there, which in all, Joe Burrow did a great job of here. We got to keep in mind, it's only game 2, and he's personally far past expectations at this juncture, for me at least. And it was a game where, like you said, he spread this football around. He spread the ball around. You love seeing it. He was a guy that was pressured 16 times versus Baker Mayfield's 3. Mayfield's 3, I don't remember when the 3 happened. I do remember the 1. There was a blitz in there. They did get to him. They picked up the first still, but the other times, what did they do? Was he just sitting back there for like 8 seconds? And they're like, oh, he's got a little pressure on him now. They gotta get some pressure on that quarterback. They got to, but again, gotta keep in mind, this is a Browns team that tried to build a solid offense. The Browns team's talented. It's tough to say that when you watch what the Browns have done in the past. You gotta really give these guys credit for the way they played, the way they built this team. They just put it all together. They're a good team. So I'm not too upset about that. And not to mention, speaking of being upset about that, let's not forget about this. This is a primetime football game. Who remembers the last time the Bengals scored 30 points in a primetime football game? Doesn't happen very often. You gotta love that. You gotta love that. The new look Bengals over here competing in primetime. How nice does that sound? Getting the playoffs. We get there. He's got the poise to do it. I mean, the 2-minute drills continue to impress by Joe Burrow. A minute 30 again. This game brought him down the field and put some points on the board. Another thing that, the Bengals have lacked in years past is that 2-minute offense. And that's where you can win and lose a lot of games. You go out there and put points on the board in the final minute. Last team to score in that the half. That's a big deal. And Joe Burrow showed us 2 weeks in a row now. He's got the ability to do that for this team. And that's got to be huge. That is going to be absolutely huge, especially when you get the chance to double up. I think Mixon played very well in this game. I know there was a lot of, how this or that about him. That one questionable play, probably shouldn't have bounced it out at the goal line. That was there. But overall, you watch this guy. He had a lot of, jolt in his step there. For a Browns defense that's very good at stopping a run. We brought this up. They did a very good job at stuffing Baltimore Raven running backs last week. And Mixon did a good job of his own there, breaking a lot of tackles, trying to make something out of nothing. Gotta love what he did there. Shotgun's ain't it though. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Like to hear the thoughts on this one. I've never been a fan of the shotgun run in the NFL. The defensive line, it works in college because you're quicker. You got a lot more speed than these DNs. That's not the case here in the NFL. These linemen can move. And especially in the Bengals case here, and they seen it, what was it that what the heck was it, that RPO or whatever that they ran there. What was the first time they ran that all game? That was a little bit different. Interesting of a call there. But you think about it in the NFL, when you got an offensive line that struggles like the Bengals and you hand that ball off right then and there, they have all that time for that running back to get from there to the offensive line to get off their tackle. It just makes it that much more difficult for a struggling offensive line, as opposed to where you run out of the eye, you're forcing them to respect the play action before they overcommit, or so on and so forth there. So if there's one thing I do look at a little bit in this game, I think there's a lot of goods to take out of this game. The play calling was a little interesting because it was J.K. Dobbins last week, right? I think he ran 2 touchdowns. And both of them on the outside. He ran them outside, got the touchdowns that way against this Browns defense. And the Bengals, they didn't try that at all at the goal line. They only tried it once during the game, I think, if I remember right. And they got 5 or 6 yards out of it. So that was a little different. And then you seen Burrow. Burrow finally took control of this team. At least that's what it looked like from here. We didn't see them ask the coach we didn't see them ask Coach Taylor about that. But it looked like it when they was driving down the field. And they put up the touchdown and made it 23, right? They got their 23rd point in there. That was the drive where you seen they went no huddle. But you seen Joe Burrow kind of taking a little bit more time at the line of scrimmage. You're seeing the clock down 15, 16, 17 seconds as opposed to coming out of the huddle, running a play, or coming down just 10 seconds and go. He was making adjustments at the line of scrimmage. And they scored. Something you love to see there out of Joe Burrow as a rookie, making the adjustments, finding the open man, getting a touchdown. So you wonder, again, do you look at the play calling of a team that's struggling in the red zone last year, this year? Is that the issue they're having here drawing up plays? Joe Burrow took control of that team there, took care of business, found what he needed to do, and scored there. Good problem to have, though, right? Pretty good problem to have, saying your quarterback went out there and did a better job at calling the plays than your offensive coordinator because he scored on him. Overall, worst team in the league last season. You got to keep that in mind. This is the worst team in football last season as Bengals. There's a lot of pieces missing. I think you look and say, hey, you got Joe Burrow and you just want to win. We signed these guys, you just want to win. We got to keep in mind, this is a Bengals team, and that was really good. There was a stretch where they was really good at drafting. And then you've seen it reflected in this team. And these last 5-6 years, they've done a lot of swing and missing on first-round talent players that are just kind of, John Ross, Aboihi, who in the heck else was in there? Some of these CBs that they've taken that really didn't, fruition or come into fruition as an elite CB you would have liked to see type of deal there. So I think you gotta temper your expectations a little bit and understand, until they clean that up, bring in some more talent, and go on from there. Especially, I really feel like the trenches is something this Bengals team doesn't look into on both sides of the ball. They get in, they figure that out, and this team can be a pretty scary football team. But until then, gotta love watching them. Gotta love watching them because Joey B is keeping this football team in games, putting up points. And that overall makes this Bengals team exciting to watch. 0-2 right now. Got to remember they have a pretty favorable schedule throughout the season. Got the Browns again, the Ravens twice, Steelers twice. That might be the toughest slate they have to worry about is those 5 games right there. See what they can do. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.